What's up everyone, and welcome back to the channel for another 4K Blu-ray review. And today's review takes us back to 2003 for what would be the start of the two-film spectacle from the mastermind himself, Quentin Tarantino. Kill Bill Volume 1 and Volume 2, which came out in April of 2004. To coincide with the release of Jackie Brown on 4K, Lionsgate Limited put out these awesome steelbooks of both Kill Bill films. Let's check it out. Just like Jackie Brown, got this little see-through slipcover, and then the steelbook. Inside, 4K disc, Blu-ray disc. Volume 2 is exactly the same. Pretty nice steelbooks. Better be 40 bucks each. Like I said, these films came out the same time that Lionsgate put out the new 4K of Jackie Brown. We reviewed that. That looked really good, very pristine, because they went back to the original camera negative to make that 4K image. These, they did not go back to the camera negative. These are glorified Blu-rays. They upscaled that Blu-ray master for these 4K discs. Maybe you shouldn't upgrade your Blu-rays to get these. I mean, they are pretty cool looking steelbooks, but we're going to get into that. I saw these films in the theater back in the day, and while they're two completely different films together, they tell the classic revenge tale of the bride, played by Uma Thurman, looking to get back at Bill and his deadly Viper assassination gang for leaving them for dead at that chapel in El Paso, Texas. This first film, when I saw it in the theater, I was completely blown away by the amount of action in it. The kung fu, sword fights, it was over the top. And it was only like an hour and 40 minutes, so I mean, it was pretty short. Totally blown away. The second film, I wasn't really keen on it when it first came out because it was longer. There wasn't as much action. And it was mostly character driven with a lot of backstory. But without this second film, we wouldn't have gotten Five Finger Death Punch.
Pai Mei taught you the 5-point palm exploding heart technique. Of course he did.
We're going to get into each film in detail, but like all Tarantino films, you have a great ensemble cast led by Uma Thurman. You also had Vivica A. Fox, Michael Madsen, Lucy Liu, Daryl Hannah, and Bill Carradine. Of course, you also had some, character actors with bit parts. There was even a cameo by Samuel L. Jackson. Being Tarantino, you can also count on those up close and personal facial shots. Quentin Tarantino was at the top of his game with these films. Let's get into Volume 1. Like I mentioned, when I saw these in the theater, I much preferred Volume 1 because of all the over-the-top action, kung fu, sword fights. And it was 30 minutes shorter, so it didn't spend a lot of time in backstory and character development. So it just gave you just enough to get the story going, and we're off. But after watching it again, I think I preferred number 2 a little more. But Volume 1 is still really good. Let's get into it. The film starts with a bride and her party at a church in El Paso, Texas, where the bride and her party are brutally murdered. Well, everyone but the pregnant bride. She awakens from a coma 4 years later and vows to seek revenge on her former boss, Bill, and the 4 other members of the deadly Viper assassination squad. First, the bride takes out the Black Mamba, Bernita Green, and then she travels to Okinawa to get a samurai sword from the legendary master, Hattori Hanzo. The sword is necessary to take on Oren Ishii and her crazy 88 bodyguards. As I mentioned earlier, this is not a true 4K scan of the film. Though it's presented in a 2:40:1 aspect ratio in Dolby Vision, this is an upscale from a 1080p master. So basically, a little better than Blu-ray. So while Jackie Brown looked pristine, this one looks as good as your Blu-rays from the last 15 years. Granted, the colors looked great, as did the contrast levels with the darker scenes. But for a 4K Blu-ray, you would almost have to expect a flawless transfer. You can definitely see the lack of detail in some of the facial shots. At least the Steelbooks are nice. Audio was presented in DTS 5.1 HD, which sounded really good, but it's the same as the old Blu-rays, which always sounded good. There was excellent use of surrounds and a significant amount of low-frequency effects during the action sequences. It was nice to hear the clashing swords near the end of the movie. Plus, there's always the nice musical numbers that Tarantino adds in. It's a solid audio track. In terms of special features, you had a making of Kill Bill, which came from the old Blu-ray, some musical numbers, and trailers of other Tarantino films. While it's not a true 4K, it's a really awesome looking Steelbook for a solid Tarantino flick. I enjoyed it a little more back in 2003, but it's still a pretty decent film. 8.5 out of 10. On to Volume 2. I initially was not impressed with this film upon first seeing it in 2004, but it has grown on me over the years as I've gotten older. I really do enjoy the character-driven narrative of this film, as we get to learn more about Uma Thurman's character, and while Bill wants to kill her. It really adds some color to the whole ordeal, and frankly, I enjoy this one a little more than Volume 1. Let's get into it. Much like the first film, this film also starts at the chapel where we learn all about the wedding party with the introduction of Bill. After they die again, we fast forward to the present where we see the bride going after the brother of Bill, Bud, played by Michael Madsen. He eventually gets the upper hand and buries her alive, but the bride uses the teachings of Master Pai Mei to break free. It was nice to see her training days with the legendary Kung Fu Master. She then focuses her attention on Ellie Driver, where she plucks out her other eyeball. After that, it's on to Bill, the last member of the revenge tour, where more than just he is waiting for the bride. As with Volume 1, I felt this upscaled 240:1 image is as good as that. Good colors, black levels, and overall a very good picture, but only slightly better than my Blu-ray. There were a few scenes that had a ton of grain in them, and actually looked worse than Blu-ray, but at some point, what does it matter in complaining? The scene I noticed is when she was crawling out of the dirt. The image looked a tad soft. In any case, no real complaints except that it's a glorified Blu-ray. Again, the audio was presented in DTS 5.1 HD, and it sounded great as the first film. The rumble of Bud's shotgun was enough to shake the walls of any theater. Musical numbers were catchy, and dialogue was crystal clear. A solid track. Special features included a making of Volume 2, a deleted scene, and a musical performance. Nothing too earth-shattering here. I did prefer this one over Volume 1, but just slightly. I really enjoyed watching the backstories of Bill and the bride. But if I had to complain, it would be for the lack of a truly 4K image. In any case, 9 out of 10 for Volume 2. Well, there you have it. Kill Bill Volumes 1 and 2 in awesome looking steelbooks that look slightly better than Blu-ray. Honestly, if you don't want the steelbooks, just keep the Blu-rays. Well, that's today's 4K Blu-ray review. Come back again. See what else we're spinning up.
Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, and share, bruh.